Hey, hello everybody. Welcome. It is Thursday. It is 9. So of course you're in UK. UK it means it's UK Cowboys time. How are we doing, everybody? And that includes our very special guest, Mr. Kyle Yeomans.
How's it going, everybody? Glad to be on with you again. It's funny, you had like the 2-minute intro, and you got the collage back behind it now on the screen. And I spent all 2 minutes looking through each of those pictures to see my friends and my coworkers. And it took literally to the final 4 seconds for me to see my own picture up there. I was like, oh, look, there I am. That's great. Like, it took me the entire timer to try and figure it out. But yeah, I'm glad to be back with you guys.
Yeah, as they say, save the best to last, mate.
Yeah, just shove me in a corner. Everybody else can get the front stuff.
No,
I don't
would
need to
never
be up there.
We'd never do that to you. And this is the first time we've got to speak to you since you've handed over a equivalent to a Super Bowl ring to your new fiance. So congratulations on that, by the way.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
it was a ton of fun. You know, I've been with her for a while. She actually used to work here as well. She worked as an intern whenever we went to school together. We were in college together, and so she was actually a Cowboys employee before I was even thought of in this building. So she's the trendsetter in the household, and so I thought I might as well lock it up with a nice engagement ring. But we're very excited. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, go on. Sorry.
And it's good to see that the Dallas weather didn't hamper your plans at all.
No, and you're right. The Dallas weather's nuts. I woke up this morning and I was like, all right, let me check the weather. Let me see what I need to wear. And it was like, 33 degrees. Okay, that's fine. Like, 33 is not too bad. It's a little chilly, but it's there. It was like a high of 77. I was like, wait, that's not okay. I was like, and that's, for those of you, that's Fahrenheit, not Celsius, of course, but that is Fahrenheit. So it's nearly freezing to really like a kind of a nice, little bit warmer afternoon. So Texas weather is pretty crazy.
Yeah, well, you just mentioned, mind you, our summer, so there we go. But here's a question for you, talking about that, right, is what are the chances and what's the buzz on the Cowboys coming to London this year?
It's funny, I looked at that not too long ago because I knew I was going to be on with you guys, and there's a chance. I don't know if there's any buzz or anything around there, but of course the Cowboys will not be playing the Cardinals this year, so that takes Mexico into the equation. They're not going to go to Germany or one of the other spots that are kind of in the talking at the moment because of who they're tabbed to be playing on the road this season. So if they were to be in the UK, it would have to be, or excuse me, if they're going to play abroad anywhere, if they're going to play anywhere outside of the United States, they would play in the UK. I certainly hope it happens. If it doesn't happen this year, it needs to happen next year. It needs to happen at some point down the line because I want to be able to mingle with you guys. I hope they even send this. I don't know if they will or not, but I definitely think there's an opportunity there. I don't know if there's really any buzz around it specifically, though.
Okay, because that was going to be my next question: is what would be the chances we get the great KY over with us?
Trust me, if they're going to the UK, I want to be there. I've been to London once in my life, and I 100% want to go back. I think it's fantastic. I think you guys do it right over there, and I want to make sure and meet up with the Cowboys fans that are across the pond as well.
We have a long list of people that we are willing to take a kidnapping strike against it. So if you want to be another one that we try and stuff into a suitcase and bring over, we're willing to do that.
I'm 6'3" and like 230 pounds. If I fit in your suitcase, you've got a massive suitcase, my friend. Massive.
I'm trying to think. Can you make yourself into the shape of a surfboard and we'll pretend you're a surfboard?
That's probably a little bit more along the lines of what could happen. I could probably make that work.
Here we are. But yeah, that was going to be my first question out of the gate. Was about the UK side of it all. But we'll get to the Dallas Cowboys stuff. As always, we kind of go off rails here and try and somehow claw it back within a few minutes. But first questions for you. Is obviously it'll be the news that has come out today. First news was about Schottenheimer being taken as part of the coaching staff. as an advisor, and I'll get everybody else's opinion on this too. But really, it kind of sounds like he's taken on that advisor role that McAdoo had last year. Is that kind of a case? Is it more the analytical side he's advising on?
Yeah, there's kind of an analytical side to it, and of course, Schottenheimer being a younger version of the analytical coach in the NFL, as opposed to what Ben McAdoo was a year ago. McAdoo was honestly more so involved in the offense, whereas Schottenheimer is going to be, at least from my understanding, he's going to be pretty much even between offense and defense, kind of overseeing Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn, whatever they need from an analytical and informational standpoint. He's going to be that go-to guy. And this is kind of what we've seen. This is the third season of Mike McCarthy at the helm, and he likes to have experienced coaches as a part of his coaching staff. And Schottenheimer is another one of those. Even though he's younger than McAdoo, he's still an experienced NFL coach, and he's been around the league for quite some time. I don't know if it's going to be anything that'll really take this team to the next level. It might be a minor deal, but it is something somewhat of a win, having another brain like that to bounce ideas off of and to try and keep that creativity rolling. Because as we know, down the stretch, things kind of got a little stale for the Cowboys, especially on the offensive side.
Yeah, that's true. And I know, Lorne, you had a thing you wanted to weigh in on it. If you want to chip in on the Schottenheimer hiring,
it's a sort of nod back to, again, with the sort of going back a couple of years and sort of returning the favour to Mike Nolan when we hired him as defensive coordinator. You know, Schottenheimer was Marty was the first one to give Mike McCarthy a job in the NFL. So it's a sort of repaying in kind sort of thing. So, you know, as Kyle says, it's bringing another member into the brain trust, somebody who's had at least passing game coordinator experience as well. So, you know, dealing with at the high up level as well. So rather than the nitty gritty side of things. So
yeah. So what we want to know, though, which is very important, and then I'll get the guys' opinions once you give us your opinion on this, Kyle. We heard a little bit of buzz that two people may be coming to the Cowboys. One is that Greg Zuerlein might be coming back. The other one is T.Y. Hilton. What is the momentum on this story? Is there much truth behind it, or what? What are we dealing with there?
Yeah, I think there's a potential for Greg Zuerlein to be back in the fold. I think that's a big thing that is kind of flying under the radar at the moment. As and just because he's coming back doesn't mean he's going to be the kicker in 2022. It basically serves, again, kind of like what we've talked about on DallasCowboys.com for a number of different positions. It serves as the baseline to where if you didn't get another added person to that position, you can still go play a football game. That's what the Cowboys have always done. That's the way that this front office likes to kind of work their roster, massage their roster heading into the draft, is to allow for the best player available to be selected. And I think that stands the same from a kicking situation. Is Greg Zuerlein may be re-signed. He may be back on this roster, but just because he's re-signed doesn't mean that they can't go and draft a kicker if they want to, and maybe add a guy out of the collegiate side of things. Because I don't really think you look across the NFL right now and you see that free agent kicker that you feel more comfortable than bringing in a Greg Zuerlein back into the fold. So I think this is if they end up doing it, of course, this is not official, nor has it happened yet. But if they were to bring back a Greg Zuerlein, I think in order to do so, it would basically be saving themselves just in case they leave April's draft weekend without a kicker in hand.
Yeah, so more covering themselves, like they've done with the other players. Okay,
sure.
What about the T.Y. Hilton rumor?
You know, it's funny. You're the first one that I've heard say that at all. I haven't heard anything about T.Y. Hilton specifically. Now, it doesn't surprise me that they're looking at veterans, and not only at the wide receiver spot, but I expect maybe a guard to be in the conversation the next couple days as well. Of course, last week it was James Washington and Dante Fowler Jr. that were signed on Friday. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe it's a late in the week conversation that they have with a veteran, either as a guard or as a wide receiver. And maybe those are guys that the Cowboys elect to bring in. And once again, it kind of goes back to the conversation you had that we just talked about in the fact of covering yourself for position purposes heading into the draft. Just because they bring in a T.Y. Hilton doesn't mean they're not going to draft a wide receiver to be a long-term option there. And you can say the same thing about a number of different positions.
Yeah. All right. And Jamie, Graham, I'll let you guys weigh in. What are you thinking? Are you agreeing with this idea behind the Zerline just covering themselves for the draft?
Go on, Jay.
Either one of you.
It's certainly what we've seen the team do in the past. You know, even if they go with a kicking competition, it means they don't have to reach for anybody that falls particularly, but they're not left without a kicker after the draft because obviously no kicker springs to mind. Like Kyle was saying, I mean, there's plenty of guys on the street just now. That's why you see kickers go for millions of dollars per year, because if you've got a good one, you're going to hold on to him. You're not going to let him walk out the door. So if they want to bring Zerline back for a competition and maybe pick up an undrafted rookie, I'm all for that. You know, rather than just have a rookie come in day one, not have any competition and not have him pushed. You know, like he's basically won the job already. So. I don't know if Kyle can weigh in on the salary, but I don't imagine he's on the same salary that he was coming on last year.
Yeah, it'll probably be a little bit less if I had to guess. I'll give you the exact numbers of what he was here in just a second as I look it up, because I'm completely unprepared to talk about kickers. But yeah, I don't think it would be anything wild compared to what he was getting paid in the past. If anything, I think he would probably slash what his salary was. He was getting 2.5 over 2 years. So $5 million, the average 2.5 a year. His dead money was only $300K. So for the most part, if you could maybe get him for $1 million, $1.5 million, he could be right back in the thick of things. And it really wouldn't cost you a whole lot on the dollar as well.
Yeah, we do have a kicker on the roster at the moment in Chris Nagar, but you know, obviously he's fairly untested.
Yeah,
doesn't have the same pedigree as Zerline, but yeah, you certainly don't want to be going into training camp and he's got the job. You know, even without actually kicking a football in training camp, you don't want him saying he's the starter like we did last year.
You don't like Chris Nagar as a kicking option? That's not something that you want as something moving into 2023?
Yeah, especially when so much hinges on the kicker as well, as we found out last season.
Goodness gracious. There's so many head rubs and just face palms waiting to happen if that ends up being the case.
I got it very poor carpet in the center of my living room from pacing so much from last season. Just watching Zerline and going, okay, start the pacing. So I've been told I need to buy a new rug actually just to cover the pace marks.
It was the dropping to the knees at 3:00 in the morning and waking the house up. That was what did it for me.
Yeah.
It's such a contrast from a few years ago.
Yeah. But let's get on to really for us the big signing of the week so far is Carlos Watkins. I know obviously they've signed 2 other players, which we'll get to in a moment, and then we'll move on to some other free agent talk. But obviously Carlos Watkins, I think last season he did what was needed of him. You know, didn't blow it out the water, but didn't fail either. When you go through some of his stats, got his first touchdown ever in his career, got his first interception, got a first fumble recovery. So in some respect, and I think when I read the stats, I believe I did put it up, but I believe he got more pressures this season than he did, in any other particular season. I think he was down on sacks, but regardless, I know I'm waffling. What do you think of the signing? I think it's good. I think it's a decent signing.
I think it's great. The fact that you're bringing back the guys who were certainly right up at the top of your list as contributors from 2021, that's huge. And I think you mentioned Carlos Watkins, of course. I think Jaron Kearse is in that conversation. Malik Hooker, who was certainly getting better as the season went along as well, I think is right there as at the same time. But specifically on Watkins, that's a guy who you feel like can lead and give you the floor that you need out of that interior defensive line group. When he was healthy and he had guys in a rotation, that was as good of a defensive line or defensive tackle unit that you've had for this roster for quite some time. I think that's one of the biggest things that is underrated by Carlos Watkins is what he can do for Osa Odigizua, what he can do for Neville Gallimore. How does he help Tristan Hill that's going into a contract year as well? There's multiple things that Carlos Watkins is going to do for this defense. It may not show up in the stat sheet a ton. He's not going to be a big sack guy. Yeah, he did have a couple, and he certainly made some plays at the same time. But I really think his signing is one that's going to make your defensive line better. And if you're doing that, then I think it's a good move.
Yeah. What are your guys' takes as well on the Carlos Watkins? Hi, I'll start with you, the Godfather, Jamie, and work round. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it's good. Like you say, you've got the core. You could probably argue that, the season didn't turn out how we wanted it to turn out, but you could argue that the defensive line was probably the better core group last year on this roster. Yeah, we've lost Randy, but we've brought pretty much all of them back from this year, and you saw from 2020 to 2021 a big improvement, and thankfully they've all got another year now under Dan Quinn, and you can now look at adding maybe a top pass rusher in the first couple of rounds this year and keep that trend going. So I'm all for it. Like you say, like Kyle says, it's not always about the stats, it's what people do, and a lot of people, if you look at DeMarcus Lawrence over the years, got his money after the big year with sacks. But it's not always about that, is it? If you look at his QB pressures, what he does to affect the run game, the pass game.
Yeah.
And the old saying is, you can never have too many pass rushers.
That is true. What about you, Lorna? I mean, you happy with it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, last year's defense was a marked improvement from the Mike Nolan defense of 2020. We got contributions across the board from everybody, particularly Carlos Watkins, who we brought in from, I think it was Houston, we brought him in from, and he'd been, obviously behind the roster, behind JJ Watt and everything, and he actually, the fact that these guys all gelled together suggests that you do try and bring them back. If you got a strength there, you need to try and bring them back. Now, year on year, as soon as you close the book on 2021, it's a completely different unit for 2022. Some people will rise, some people will fall, but you're at least going in with the same roster as last year, and hopefully, they continue to build and work together and gel together.
Yeah, and I know our man who loves talking defensive and offensive line will want to have his way in on this one. What do you think, Gray?
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what Kyle thinks on this one with the loss of Randy Gregory. Certainly, from my understanding of our D line, is that the pressures came from the defensive end. What does Kyle think of as taking maybe an interior defensive lineman, say like a Jordan Davis, maybe to create interior pressure and collapse the pocket from the middle rather than relying on defensive end?
Yeah, well, that's where a lot of your production has come, and it really hasn't been that way just for a couple of years. It's been that way for quite some time. I see we've got people in the comments talking about Tank Lawrence, and he's certainly going to put some pressures up on the board. Randy Gregory did that for you. You're hoping that the rotation of Dorrance Armstrong and I'm already blanking, Dante Fowler. Yeah. If you have those two guys in a rotation, you feel like they could maybe rival the production from those two guys off the edge. But the fact of the matter is, you're going to have to get a lot of your pressures now without Randy Gregory in the fold from that interior, whether that's through the draft from a Jordan Davis or maybe a Travis Jones out of UConn in the second round. There's a couple names that potentially fit in that big, beefy nose tackle, man-eater sort of role that you need in the interior of that line, or you need it from your guys that are the 3 techniques, or the guys that are on your roster right now that you've spent high draft picks on. Look at Osa, look at Neville and Tristan Hill. Those are day 2 picks each of the last 3 years that you've spent on a defensive tackle. At some point, even with Randy Gregory not in the fold, you need them to step up and provide some production as well.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement there. But looking at free agents, right? Since we're looking at the free agency side, do you think that they're done, or do you think that, you know, as we get into like the sort of the next wave of free agency, they're going to do more? And if they do you think it's an offensive line?
I definitely don't think they're done. I think they are just getting started in terms of bringing in guys and looking at ways to improve this roster. And I think offensive line is where it starts. We've already mentioned Greg Zuerlein, but I think there are some offensive linemen that they certainly look at out there. It may not be the big names that you certainly look at along the way. It may not be the J.C. Treaders of the world just based off of the salary cap that they have to work around. But maybe they go and get some guys that you feel like can add depth, because right now the starters are few and far between on the open market. But if you're going to go and draft a guy to go play your left guard spot, or you're drafting a center potentially, in doing so, it also says that you're not very deep at either one of those positions as well. And I think it's something that the Cowboys certainly have their eye on, and I think they'll address it here over the next couple of days, maybe even weeks. Okay.
Could I convince any of you for them to get our own back on Cincinnati Bengals and try and poach Quinton Spain that fills a guard spot? What do you reckon?
That'd be nice. What are you offering to do that though? What are you going with there?
Yeah, that's the point. Is that I want to get my own back with the Lyle Collins situation, because I know obviously
you're in it for the personal reasons. You're trying to get back. This is a vendetta against the Cincinnati Bengals, is what you're telling me, right?
Oh yes.
Now, right?
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is it, and it's in more ways than one too. After we had to sit through that Super Bowl as well, which we had a UK Cowboys do in Glasgow for. So you imagine being very drunk and tired at 5 a.m. and watching all that unfold over here. Yeah, so I just want to try and poach him. But
and it's funny because I'm into Formula One now. I'm really big. I've always been a big racing fan, but like never into Formula One. I was always into like IndyCar and NASCAR. Formula One's relatively new to me. So now I feel your pain, because I'll wake up and I'll be drunk off of mimosas on a Sunday morning by the time 8 o'clock rolls around, and I'm going to be pissed because Lando Norris spun into the wall, and I'm not okay with it. It's fine. I mean, Sochi almost broke my heart the way that happened. So, I feel your pain on that one for sure.
Yeah, but there you go. Look, see, it's all about round the clock. But the good news is, there's some good news on this, is that over in the States, me and Lorne were talking about this, is you're getting rid of daylight savings time. So in the winter, we get that extra hour closer to you. It works in our favor. So we're all like, yes, let's all vote. Can we vote for it over here in the UK?
Oh my gosh. You're trying to come in and provide a little bit of external output or input, I should say. I like it.
Whatever the poll is, they can have just like a tick for the UK on that one.
Just another one.
Yeah, I don't know if it has much effect on voting in the States.
I know I don't get a vote, so.
All right. Is that because you're Canadian?
No. I think it's because it's people above my pay grade that are making that decision. Is ultimately what it is.
But here's one for you: do you think, because there's a lot of rumor right now surrounding it with the Bobby Wagner, but do you think he's perhaps slightly out of the price range of what they're after?
Right now, I think it's a potential to say that he's a little bit out of the price range. I mean, you're looking at multiple years, like 4 years, and then you've got probably double-digit millions of dollars for you to be able to make that happen. They're about $17 million under the cap right now.
Yes.
And while you look at that and you're like, wow, yeah, you could go spend 12 million and you'll be 500. That's great. But you got to remember about 11 million of that needs to be saved for your draft class in order to sign your draft class and move forward with those guys. So, I mean, you're really only working with about $6 million, $7 million if you really wanted to stretch it prior to the draft in trying to go and find these guys. And of course, you can finagle the salary cap around the way you want. It doesn't have to be at even 6 million or 7 million a year. You could try and figure it out. But with Bobby Wagner serving as his own agent, it really does feel like as we go along, it gets just less and less likely that he would be in a Cowboys uniform. I think there's mutual interest there. I've definitely heard that there's mutual interest. And at times I thought the deal was going to get done. But at least at this point in time, I really don't see it happening. And even though I would love for it to happen, I just think that they're going to look elsewhere with that remaining cap space and maybe make it work like that.
Yeah. What I would say is the Cowboys have got 17 million at the moment, but obviously June 1st they get an extra 10 million from Lyle Collins. So Lyle Collins practically covers your draft class, if nothing else.
Yeah,
you've got that 17 to draft the big guys just now. But I mean, let him see what there is in the market. If nobody's jumping up and down for him, which, you know, the fact that he's still on the market at the moment suggests that we could come back round to this as well. But you know, it's a bit depressing to see that at the moment the sort of motivation's not there to sign with Dallas and get back with Quinn. But
yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, you got anything to add to that one, Kyle? Or do you want me to move to the next?
No, I think it's a great point. I think overall you're looking at it from a salary cap standpoint. You make a good point about the 10 million from Lyle, and even though that's post June 1 and that won't show up in your cap at least until June. Maybe they wait and just try and delay signing these draft picks to a certain amount of time. But even then, I still think it would be tight to try and they would want to try and get these guys done, get these guys into OTAs, rookie minicamp, and things like that along the way before they really start worrying about maybe kicking that can down the road as well.
Yeah. So here's one for you from the mailbag that happened in a week. When they find out you were coming on, I got a question and I forget who asked it, so I do apologize. Do you think the Cowboys, with what's going on with Tony Pollard and issues with Zeke slowing down, do you think this is a year where they should draft a running back just to protect themselves for the future?
That's a good one because there is some question mark around whether or not, of course, Zeke will be here long term. Tony Pollard's getting into that part of his contract where either he's going to need more money or he will be out on the open market as well. I think there's a chance that they draft a running back, and they've talked to a couple of guys. They've talked to some of the top guys and then some of the guys at the bottom of the list. I know they met with Isaiah Spiller out of Texas A&M during the week in Indianapolis. Rashad White out of Arizona State, Jerome Ford from Cincinnati are all guys that I know Dallas has at least had a little bit of contact with. And all three of those guys were Senior Bowl products at the same time too. So they've gotten a chance to see them up close, get to know those guys. Excuse me, Spiller was not a Senior Bowl guy, but Ford and Price were. So I think there's a couple of opportunities there late in the draft if you wanted to spend a pick on them. But even then, how much do you expect for them to contribute? Because you'd still like what Rico Dowdle brings to the table. He got hurt this past year, but from a special team standpoint and as a third back in that rotation, I think he fit that role perfectly. You will get Shewo Olanalua back, who was also hurt, kind of played that fullback, H-back sort of role for this Cowboys offense a year ago. So you have guys in the room. It's just whether or not you feel comfortable about those guys moving forward, and maybe you don't want to wait until 2023 to address your running back situation. And right now, I don't see that as an ultimate need, but I think it is a sneaky need for the Cowboys moving into the draft.
I agree. Sneaky is what I like to put it as too, yeah. And obviously, although they've taken on James Washington from Pittsburgh, looking at it, they've given him quite a 1-year deal, so it's more of a protection thing. Do you still think at this stage wide receiver is a high priority in this draft?
Yeah, I think it is, especially when you look at the potential receivers that are there on the board or that could be there on the board either at 24 or at 56. I think wide receiver could be one of those things that you go out and you get, because even with James Washington being here, and sure, he could play that Cedric Wilson type of role where you use him in a number of different ways. He kind of gives you that change up for your offense. And he's had decent production throughout his career, even being buried on the depth chart during his time in Pittsburgh as well. So I think there's a chance that he comes in and provides some good production. But in terms of a long-term answer, I really don't think this front office expects James Washington to be that next long-term option for Dak Prescott to be throwing the football to. I think their next long-term option is going to come from that draft class, either early on or maybe even day 2 or day 3.
Yeah, and because they have met with every Tuesday we do a prospect project show where we just take a position and look at the guys. This week it was defensive end. The week before we was looking at wide receiver. One of the things I pointed, and it's quite ironic as well, that he's been a 30 visit, is there's a certain Arkansas, which we know Jerry Jones quite likes, wide receiver who's gone in. And I do truly believe that if he's there, Traylon Burks, I think he's going to be at least a huge consideration for Jerry Jones when he's there.
Yeah, I think he would certainly be in the conversation as a potential outside receiver that you would like to maybe entertain, I guess. And the Cowboys, even though, of course, the Jones family has that Arkansas connection, they haven't necessarily been known to take a ton of Arkansas guys in the draft. It's really been one guy over the course of their drafting tenure that they've brought out of Fayetteville. And so I think Burks is different because he fits a need and he fits a role that this Cowboys team would have as an outside receiver who could kind of be a gadget player. You could bring him in the slot. You could use him in the backfield. He's quick enough to run away from some of the best defenses in collegiate football. So you would think he would have some success in the NFL as well, even though his testing times weren't as fruitful as you would like him to be. But I think Burks is certainly there. Garrett Wilson out of Ohio State could be in that conversation. Same thing with Chris Olave, who I know has been reported that he's coming to Dallas on a 30 visit as well. If Olave is there at 24 and they don't necessarily feel like they have an offensive lineman or an edge rusher that could help them immediately, I would expect wide receiver to be heavy in that conversation and maybe even the pick.
Yeah, 100%. So what I would thought, because we've obviously got you for an hour, don't want to keep you much more than that. No, this time of year you're a busy man, a lot going on, so we don't want to go on for too long. But what I thought is to do a little experiment, if you like, and get your opinion here. Okay. And basically looking at the NFC East, because obviously the easiest way to get to the playoffs is win your division, right? So what I thought we'd do, and I'll do this with all of us to find out if we can get a consensus here, is to look at the 4 NFC East teams and where they rank in each position. And that way it gives you a sort of idea of where we look weakest and try and figure something out there. But in your opinion, in terms of quarterback, and we're only looking really at starters, in terms of, like offensive linemen, defensive line, we look at the full string, if you like. And same with running backs, wide receivers. But are we all in agreement the Cowboys would rank first in quarterback?
Yep.
Yeah. I think that one's pretty easy.
That one's the easiest one. Yeah. Like when I was going for it, I was like, this experiment's going really well.
We'll go ahead and check that box and move on.
Yeah. And then because then you go to running back and you go, well, Zeke, Tony. And when you go through everybody else, you go, still. I mean, Commanders, got to get used to saying that. They're fairly close with what they've got, but I still think the Cowboys are better. Are we all in agreement there?
You're talking about for running back?
Running back, yeah.
I mean, if Saquon Barkley is healthy, you could maybe throw the Giants into that conversation, because even as much as we love Zeke has not been the same Zeke over the last couple of years. And he puts up production, but he's not that same kind of explosion. So I would say a healthy Saquon Barkley ranks at the top of that list. But outside of that, I would say, yeah, from a position group standpoint. Now, if we're talking running offense, like rushing offense in general, I think Philadelphia needs to be in that conversation because they were tops in the NFL in terms of rushing yards per game. So I think they could be there too. But if we're specifically keeping it to running back, which I believe is the thought process behind this, then I would still give Dallas the edge, but only if Saquon Barkley's not healthy.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, my thought process between, and I agree, because Saquon Barkley is that home run hitter, the boom or bust type guy. But when you look at a track record and you always say what's a player's best ability is availability, and Saquon so far has proven to be unavailable. So that's the only reason I'm the same as you. Now, this is where it gets a bit convoluted and a bit tricky. And we've had a bit of a discussion before you came in about this one. So it's pass catchers. So this is why it makes it tricky. So we're including wide receiver and tight end in this group. Now, where would you rank in the NFC East? And this is tricky, and we're going to get different answers. Yeah, the Cowboys, where do they rank? Because you have to include, if you've got Philly, you're including Dallas Goedert. And that makes that one a particularly tricky choice.
Yeah, you guys go first on this. I'm thinking on this.
Yeah, well, I got Giants last. I'm working backwards off this. I got Giants last to keep that one simple. And it's really, for me, because the other issue you've got with Washington is that I would say they probably got the best wide receiver in the NFC East now with Terry McLaurin. So already they're ahead because they have the best. I think Philly have got a nice option. And then Cowboys, you've got question marks because although I like CeeDee Lamb and he is a good wide receiver, so far what we've got from him, and I want to try and be careful with my words. How to say it? He's just been underwhelming.
Yeah, that's because I'm looking. I'm looking at Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin, Logan Thomas. I mean, they've got guys in Washington that they like, and that I like too, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And then Philadelphia is Devontae Smith, Jalen Reagor, who's been very disappointing. But then they've got Dallas Goedert that kind of makes up for that.
And it's tricky.
I would probably say give me Washington first. Dallas as a close second. Second.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I would do Philly third.
And Philly are extremely close to Dallas too.
Yeah, I would probably put them pretty close too.
Yeah.
And Dallas, I mean, maybe it's the opposite of the recency bias and the fact that we're disappointed that there is no Amari Cooper. But I mean, you think about CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Dalton Schultz. That's a pretty good trio to throw the football to, and you're not going to see a trio like that what the Cowboys had previously. Unless they go and draft a guy in the first 2 rounds, then I think automatically you're going to throw them right up at the top of that list again.
Yeah. Where have you guys got the wide receiver / tight end cause? I've got it second with like a line next to it, and I don't know what the line means yet. Yeah. I've decided just to put a line next to it.
Yeah, I mean, I've basically got the Giants. I've basically got the Giants last, but I mean, obviously, Giants have Kadarius Toney, who, you know, was certainly coming on and certainly lit our secondary up in the first Giants game.
Yep.
You know, and then it pretty much, you know, if Michael Gallup returns to form and we get as close to a full season out of him, I don't know, you know, obviously week 1 isn't ruled out, but it's going to be very tight to get him back for week 1. If you get a full season out of those guys and they meet their potential, then Dallas is there at 1. But everybody else, I think the gap is certainly closed. Philadelphia, I like Quez Watkins. I think Devontae Smith had obviously had the rookie record last year. or certainly a Philadelphia rookie record. I think it was for, obviously when we were playing their third string in that final away game of the season. That was the one record that they were going for. And then, as we say, I think Washington have got, Curtis Samuel, they've got McLaurin, Logan Hall. That's quite some tandem.
It's a sneaky force.
Well.
Yeah. I think I'm going to change my answer. I really am. I don't know if CeeDee Lamb could be classified as worse than Terry McLaurin. I really don't. I mean, I'm looking at.
There was a comment that was made, and he asked, "Why is McLaurin better than Lamb?" And
was it? I didn't even see that. Where's that?
Yeah,
it's in the YouTube. I see it right here.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm looking at the stats, and you're looking at the way. It's tough because Terry McLaurin was the guy in Washington. He was double teamed. He was the one that was the biggest threat. We're going to see very quickly if CeeDee Lamb can hold his own as a number one in the NFL. Yeah. I certainly think he can, but I don't know if it's enough because he still had better numbers. He had better receiving grades, and he did so over a longer period of time than McLaurin did this year. But also McLaurin was playing with Taylor Heineke as his quarterback as opposed to Dak Prescott as his quarterback. So I don't know.
You beat me to the point there.
Very tough to look back and forth at these two guys and really compare. I think this year you'll get a better idea of where those guys rank.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going with second. Still, I'm keeping it there for now, but we'll come back to that for good reason. But what about offensive line? Again, this is where it gets tricky because to me, just to make a mark, is you've got Tyron Smith, right? And I know people will talk about the injury problems.
Yep.
Tyron Smith as a left tackle in the NFL when he's
healthy, he's great.
He's a top 5 player. Yeah. As a top 5 left tackle. You've got Zach Martin, who is probably, you could argue, one of the best guards in the NFL. He's easily within the top 3. You got Terrence Steele who's coming along. Then we've got question marks on the left interior of that line, which is where we have problems. So where are you guys ranking offense? I've got it for me, only because we've got 2 guys who are top 5 in their position. I've got the Cowboys as the second offensive line, and I might be being a bit rich there. But what about you? What about you, Kyle? The rest of the guys?
No, I think you're right. I think Philadelphia has the top offensive line, and it really is really close to me just because across the board, they're very strong from an offensive line standpoint, especially with the return of Jason Kelce. I think Washington would probably be my third. They've got solid guys. I can't even say his name, number 71, Schweitzer. I don't really know, but he's been very good. Roulier in the middle has been very good. Cosme on the outside.
Cosme's fine,
yeah. I mean, they just have a solid group. I don't think they're as good as Dallas. I would put Philly far and away as number 1. I would put Dallas as a number 2, very tight with Washington, number 3, almost a 2A, 2B. I mean, they're very comparable. And then I would throw the Giants in last again, which, sorry, New York, but it's happening.
Yeah. Anybody got anything different in terms of offensive line? Anyone going for first?
No, again, there's too many question marks about the two weak positions on our offensive line. We don't know if Connor Williams was the weak link or if Tyler Biadasz was the weak link, and Connor Williams' problems were, as a matter of fact, of the weak link of Tyler Biadasz or vice versa. So there's question marks there. Philadelphia, obviously, they've got the veteran in Kelce. They got Mailatu. They've got potential there as well. They need to get everybody together and get them a bit seasoned.
I will say Lauren has a great point. If you asked me this question again after the draft in April, or maybe going into May, I may say Washington's number 2 on that list, and it may not be very close. I think right now we're thinking that they're going to address it. I still think there's a hope that that gets addressed and that the center position either gets upgraded or your left guard position gets upgraded or both.
Yeah.
And right now, if they don't do either one of those things and your starters are Tyron Smith, Connor McGovern, Tyler Biotish, Zach Martin, and Terrence Steele, they're the third best offensive line in the division, and they may even be closer to New York than they would be to Washington.
Yes, agree there. Now, this one I find a bit easier. This is defensive line across the board. So from bookend to bookend and the interior. Where are you ranking the Cowboys? I've got them as the third defensive line. Obviously, the Commanders. See, I'm getting used to it slowly. Getting used to it. Yeah, they're one. I got Eagles, although I have a question about Fletcher Cox. Why they were allowed.
I think
he is back. He's back.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're right.
I don't get how that rule was allowed.
Yeah, it happens, I guess. It's the NFL. There's weird loopholes and everything in there.
I don't see how that hasn't been done before then.
That's true.
Yeah, it's so strange. But anyway, yeah, Eagles. Then I got the Cowboys, and then Giants again. Sorry, Giants.
Yeah, that's my 4.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to add.
Anything different? Anybody? Anything different to first? Are we happy?
No,
with that?
as long as it's Washington, they're beating up on offensive lines and not beating up on themselves on the sideline.
yeah, there is that factor. So then, this is where I'm having trouble. This is the one I had trouble with the most, is linebacker position. Only because the Cowboys have 2 out of 3 of their linebacker spots filled. Jabril Cox with an injury, with a question mark. We don't know how that's going to go. And even still, the other guy we filled the position with is Leighton Vander Esch, who you can say had not a very good rookie contract part. But I would say that last season, as the season wore on, you were seeing a different Leighton Vander Esch, certainly right the way up to the 49ers game at the end of the season. And I don't mean to swear by saying that. But where are you guys ranking the linebacker position? Because at the moment, I'm putting Micah Parsons in there, and he makes up pretty much 100% of the linebacker position.
I guess I'll go first here too. Micah Parsons by far makes him number 1. I don't think there's another player in the entire division that even remotely goes to what Micah Parsons could do at that position. And you look at even the division as a whole. I mean, let's start with the lowly Giants. Sorry, New York.
There's nothing there.
Tate Crowder was just pitiful. So much so that they went out and got Jalen Smith. You have Blake Martinez at the second level. None of those guys are good. Then for Washington, you have Mayo, Holcomb, and Davis.
Jamin Davis, yeah.
Yeah, Jamin Davis. I mean, he was just a rookie, so maybe he finds a way to take a step up. I think right now you're looking at Philly and Dallas specifically as the 2 teams that have good linebacker cores. And I would just take Dallas over Philly just in the fact that Micah Parsons is on that roster and in the second level.
Yeah, because I mean, when you look at it really across, they've got depth, but really their main guy is Hassan Reddick, and he's not a bad player, but he's not Micah Parsons.
No.
Yeah, I mean, my issue is that there's still I put them as a 2/3 only because they've just got so many gaps at the linebacker position.
They need bodies. They do.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
It's perhaps something I think they might try and protect themselves in free agent. That's what I think is going to go next. But anybody, what's all your thoughts in terms of the linebacker? Who's got what?
Well, I think in terms of linebacker, you've got the potential for breakouts. I mean, when you consider the starting 3, you've got Parsons, Vander Esch has only just finished his rookie deal, and possibly even Jabril Cox coming in to start. So you've got 3 very young guys there who are in their rookie deal or have just finished it. So certainly another year under Dan Quinn, you could see a breakout from that group. I know that the Eagles have added Reddick. They don't tend to use a lot of draft capital on linebacker. So it's there for the Cowboys to go on and improve in that position. And if Vander Esch has the year that we all want him to have, and he wants to have, you're potentially talking about a very good group.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah.
My only comment about Philadelphia is they've let go. Oh God, what's his name? Played for Calgary
Ridgeway.
in the CFL. No,
Singleton.
Singleton. Yeah, Singleton was a very good linebacker for them. He was one of their leading tacklers. When he was playing in Calgary, he was the sort of Sean Lee linchpin of the linebacker core there, and that's how he's managed to parlay that into an NFL career with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's somebody, you know, as an under the radar guy. If he's still available in the free agency market, I'd even consider bringing him into Dallas. Actually, he's a very, very intelligent guy, and I think he'd fit well into the Dan Quinn scheme as well.
He played quite a bit on special teams, right?
Yeah. That first season he came down from Calgary, he was particularly on special teams, and then I think injury pushed him into the lineup, and you know he never looked back from there. So
yeah. I mean, the good news is even in this draft, and Kyle, you'll test it. There are some decent linebackers, as well as, you know, that FBI type linebacker that we're talking about. That Lorne's talking. I know that's an old saying to say FBI type, but there's those type linebackers in this year's draft, so there is a way that they can fill it that way.
Yeah, I have out of so there's 51 linebackers on my board that I have here to look at. 17 of them. Or no, 14 of them, sorry, I would take in the top 100. 17 of them I would take in the top 3 rounds. So, I mean, there's still a chance there. And, of course, those last couple I'm stretching a little bit on them to maybe take them in the 3rd round because you don't pick again until like 128. So, I mean, I see them using some of their draft capital to maybe back in that. Maybe it's a Leo Chanel from Wisconsin. Chad Muma from Wyoming. He may go a little bit before the Cowboys at 56. Damone Clark out of LSU. Brian Asamoah from Oklahoma. They've got guys that they have looked at, that they have either talked to or been interested in, been rumored around, that they could maybe look at that position. I don't think they would go into the 4th round without having at least thought about a linebacker in the early round. There's usually going to be a guy there. Depending on whatever pick you have, I think a linebacker will be in that conversation.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And but I mean, I can see your argument with trying to make linebacker first because it's. I mean, you've got defensive rookie of the year. Yeah.
That's my argument. Is it's just Micah Parsons?
All right. I mean, let's move it to the cornerback position, and I'm sure this is going to spark up some controversy talking about this. Where are you guys ranking? Because obviously we've got quite good depth, I would say, too. And we wrote a piece last year about Nashawn Wright, and I think there's a guy who this year is going to go into his sophomore year, a bit more development, so there's more depth there again. The issue is, of course, people are going to say the boom or bust factor of Trayvon Diggs in comparison to what, like, say, the Eagles have in Darius Slay. So where would you rank the Cowboys at the cornerback position? I'm finding this one more trickier than the linebacker.
I think in terms of the top talent at the position, I think every team has a player that shines. I mean, Trayvon Diggs, of course, with Dallas. You have Darius Slay with Philadelphia. You have what's his name? Kyle Fuller.
Yeah, Kyle Fuller,
Washington. Like everybody, even Adoree Jackson from New York. I mean, there are guys on every team at the cornerback spot that you feel pretty good about. This is tough to rank, though, because you're right. I think depth plays a factor into it. And then also the production plays a factor into it as well. I'm interested to see what you guys think.
Yeah. Go on, Jay. Where are you ranking the corner position? I know you were having fun with this earlier. Oh dear. Right. Hold on, Jay. Wait. We're having an internet issue with you. I'll move you to Lorne a minute while you try and get a minute. But Lorne and Graham, the Scottish pair, give us what you... there we go. He's going to try and reset himself now, I bet. Give us where you rank the corner position for the Cowboys.
I think it is difficult, as Kyle says. Everybody's got the number one cornerback on each team is a standout guy. I think Dallas probably has the depth in that we've got Anthony Brown, who, obviously benefited from Dan Quinn's scheme last year, and the fact that everybody not necessarily was throwing away from Trayvon Diggs, but he was the slightly more targeted defensive back. And obviously he made the interceptions, got pick sixes.
Yeah.
You could say he could have done with standing in front of a jugs machine a bit more, because he certainly dropped a few. Yeah. But I mean, he was a reason for our secondary being what it was last year. Again, Lewis plays hot and cold at times, but when he's on his game, he shuts down the interior wide receiver as well.
Uh-huh.
I thought you saw enough out of Kelvin Joseph in the spot duties towards the end of the year that, again, another off season in the program, bring him up to speed. And I think Nahshon Wright as well, that Philadelphia game again, you saw him going well against albeit the Philadelphia sort of second and third stringers. But he was doing a job there. So I think Cowboys first. I'd probably go Philadelphia second, Giants last, and Washington third again. The
Giants are getting such a beat up on
Sorry,
this.
Giants.
Yeah, no, they're getting so. And what's funny is UK Giants are some of our best friends. I know sounds weird to say. So if they see this, they will absolutely hate it.
Yeah,
I tend to agree. Sorry, Graham, I didn't mean to.
No, go, Kel. Go for it.
I was going to say I have Dallas as probably number one, just because of the depth. Philly.
Yeah.
Then Washington, then New York.
Yeah. What about you, Grazies?
I'm going to put the Cowboys at one, simply because they do have Diggs, they have experience with Brown, but I'm also going to put it down to a little bit of potential because of the draft capital they spent last year in Joseph and Wright. Now, I get that cornerback is probably one of the more difficult positions to pick up from day one. I think that's why we're so amazed with Diggs, because you're coming up against the best talent that are going to show you things that you simply haven't seen in college. And I think certainly with Joseph, he had a bit of a rough start to his career, but being a second round pick, hopefully he can let the talent shine through. And certainly you've got Nahshon Wright there, who was a fourth round pick, if I remember right. So they've certainly spent a good amount of draft capital. Just to see just a question for Cal. Do you see that from the front office? Do they expect Joseph and Wright to make an advance in their second year, or is cornerback a need area for the Cowboys in the draft?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think they believe that they have their depth there, because whether it's the Jordan Lewis and the Anthony Browns of the world, or you turn around and then you use a Nahshon Wright or a Kelvin Joseph, I certainly think they believe Kelvin Joseph should take the step and challenge Anthony Brown, if not straight up take his starting spot, even as early as training camp. I think they want that to happen. So I don't see them really entertaining a corner very long in the draft, but it is something that I know is on the radar, just in case the right guy falls in their lap.
Yeah, and it is really unusual to say the Cowboys are okay at defensive back.
Yeah,
which is
right.
So it feels strange.
What is going on? What is this?
This is the weirdest offseason there, especially when you think of everything else that's gone on.
That's true.
Very strange. But here's one that's going to make things even weirder. The Cowboys obviously keep Curse. they keep Hooker as well, which I was really chuffed about. I really wanted, because I think there is something there. And there's some definite potential there. He's going finally into a season where he's not injured, because it seems to be, since he's got drafted, every offseason he's recovering from injury. This year, that's not happening. Safety position for me, Cowboys. This is going to be weird to say as well. For me, NFC East first.
Wow. Say it again. I just like hearing it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, because like when you go through it, there's nothing really standing out to me. Washington, Bobby McCain, great. Okay. You go over to Philly and you go, who's their best safety there? Anthony Harris. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. And I'm not going to do it again to Giants. I know they got Xavier McKinney, but I mean, there's nothing there that hops out to you where you go, no. I mean, you've got a nice selection of safeties that can do a various range of skills. Your tight end killer, your center fielder, your box safety. You've even, if you want to throw in Mukwamu, who is another guy we wrote about in the offseason as well. There's another guy that could develop into something special if that, especially with Dan Quinn, is a possibility. Safety for the Cowboys. I mean, the hairs on the back of my neck are standing up because nothing feels right.
Say it again, Mike. Where do you have them ranked?
They're first.
That's what I like to hear.
Finally did it.
I completely agree with you. I think you're spot on.
Yeah. Anybody got a change from the number one in safety position?
Nope. Say it, Lauren.
No. Go on.
Yeah.
As Kyle always says, say it with your chest.
Say it with your chest. Yes.
I've got them as number one. I mean, and it, as you say, Mike, it feels alien. We're normally sitting here going, we really need to spend some draft capital. We need to bring in a free agent. Well, we brought in guys last year who had the potential, had question marks against them because of injuries, coming back from injuries. You brought in Jaron Kearse, who had realistically only been a special teamer. Proves my point that we made last week that, one man's trash in free agency is another man's treasure.
Yeah.
Brought him in, he became a tight end killer, and a lot, it is slightly surprising that he didn't garner more interest in the free agency market, but then maybe that's just Dan Quinn's scheme, and maybe other teams wouldn't know how to use him.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put the Cowboys first, but I'm going to paint you all a scenario. Okay, I'm going to paint you all a scenario.
Don't bring it down, Graham. Don't bring it down. Don't bring it down, please.
With the fifth pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Kyle Hamilton, Notre Dame safety.
No, I tell you.
Does that change things?
I know, because I disagree with you that Kyle Hamilton is not going to go to the Giants. He's going to go before the Giants pick. So I'm keeping everybody
Hamilton
on.
Is so good, though.
He's too good. He's too good. In fact, I will go as far to say it wouldn't surprise me if Hamilton goes. I would say he could go potentially before Thibodeau.
I think that's a possibility. I think that could happen. This first 20 picks are going to be nutty regardless of what ends up happening. But I think Hamilton going before Thibodeau could certainly happen.
Yeah,
I must say I don't see that. I must say I don't see that happening. I think the Giants need too much on the offensive line for them to go and take safety. So I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, when I did my own mock draft that we was going to post up yesterday, but didn't bother because so much changed between doing the mock draft and deciding to post it up. The world changed, so there was no point in posting it up. But when you do it, you look at it and you just go, Giants, it's offensive line. You just keep every pick, you're like, it's got to be offensive. It's just way too much. And, a lot of problems that Jones has back there is because he can't stay upright. He's getting a bad treatment. But basically, the reason I was thinking of doing that project was to go and say, right, what do the Cowboys need? And what do the Cowboys need in order to get success in the NFC East? And when you look at it, you go, well, we're topping everything really, apart from wide receiver, offensive line, and defensive line. So defensive line is always an ongoing project. But when everybody's saying, what do we need? We're always going, well, wide receiver and offensive line seem to be the main points. Well, they're the two places we're weakest in the division too, where we're not first. So everything ties in with, well, if that's the case, it's a no-brainer with where we need to go. So my question now, which is why I came here, is Cal Yeomans in a vacuum. You have the choice. You are the GM and making the pick.
Okay.
Are you taking a wide receiver, or are you taking Kenyon Green from my Texas A&M? No, but are you taking offensive lineman or wide receiver at pick 24? Because that's really, to me, the two options that need to be taken in the first round.
So you're saying offensive line or wide receiver between the two?
Yeah, when you look at it, when they're the biggest holes.
Yeah, those are the two that I feel comfortable with. And if there's an edge rusher there, then that's fine. But if you gave me specific prospects, so like if Tyler Linderbaum is there, he's my pick. Like out of anybody that realistically will be there, I'm picking Tyler Linderbaum. If Kenyon Green is there, I will probably take him second. If after that, it's pretty much wide open. Go get me a wide receiver. If one of those top wide receivers falls, fine. If George Karlaftis is there, absolutely take him out of Purdue as an edge rusher. Make it happen. I think there's a need for both of those positions, but I just don't want them to feel like they're pigeonholed straight into picking either a wide receiver or an offensive lineman. I just hope the best player there is an offensive lineman or a wide receiver. And I just saw that comment that popped up right there. I am fully on the Tyler Linderbaum train. If he is there, don't be stupid. Turn in the card, draft Tyler Linderbaum, and let's ride.
Okay, but could I not make an argument for you that Linderbaum, right? I've checked the consensus rankings on him, and they're saying he's getting ranked around about the 16th, right? Which obviously is not the be all and end all. Doesn't mean he's going to be the 16th. No. It's obviously as an expert consensus. Yeah, he's going to drop. Whereas a guy, Alec. So this is what I almost did this yesterday. So here we are with it. But Alec Lindstrom, right? When you look at it, he is consensus 144. And I know you're going to say, trust the tape, watch your eyes. But let me just say, he does, right? Although they are, and it's Boston College, and we know Boston College churn out offensive linemen like nobody's business. But they are, in terms of height weight, very similar. But Alec Lindstrom has a longer arm reach, a bigger wingspan, and during his collegiate career, fewer sacks and pressures. So what I'm saying is I agree that I like the Linderbaum, but for terms of statistical value, and I know statistics you don't draft on, but when you look at it in terms of value and everything else, Alec Lindstrom is actually coming up better than Linderbaum.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, like you said, statistics, analytics, that's fine. I understand it. But yeah, you knew what my answer was going to be, and trust the tape. I've watched both guys. I have Tyler Linderbaum graded on a 7-point scale. I have him graded as a 6.8. So he is a low risk, high reward, star potential first round draft pick, in my opinion. Whereas I have Lindstrom as a front end future starter, but backup developmental offensive lineman right now. This team needs a plug and play starter. Even Tyler Biadasz, who didn't start initially, but he was really thrusted into that starting role as a rookie. I had him as a developmental player because he's a guy that you need to work more into a starting role. And he has better traits than Alec Lindstrom. But Alex Lindstrom's going to go in there and he's going to be the best center on this ball club initially. Alec Lindstrom would have to work for a little bit to be considered as a starter. He's not a plug-and-play guy on the offensive line. If you're going to take a guy to replace Tyler Biadasz, he sure better be better than Tyler Biadasz. And I saw the comment there. I kind of agree. I had Tyler Biadasz as a higher grade than I have Lindstrom in this draft, even though Lindstrom's only my fourth center that's on the board.
Yeah, he's my fourth on my board.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think determines, I think for me, Lindstrom has tested, and he's also in the East-West Shrine. He wasn't a bad player during that game.
No.
He did fine. And
No,
against the
as a
type of
fourth
players-
round developmental player and a guy who you can rely on to maybe be the guy one day. If you didn't get Tyler Linderbaum in the first round, I'm all for it. That's fine. If you wanted to take him in the fourth, if you didn't take Linderbaum earlier, you didn't get a chance at Linderbaum, sure, sign me up for it. But if you're going to tell me you would wait on Tyler Linderbaum and then draft Lindstrom later in the draft,
it's too rich.
I'm not here for that one. Give me Tyler Linderbaum and let's ride.
All right, but obviously with Linderbaum, obviously it bottom 5% in weight and bottom 1% in wingspan and arm length. That isn't concerning to you though with the pros?
It's a little concerning, but it's not concerning at 24 because any player that you get outside of the top 12, 15 players in the draft, they're not going to be a wholesome player. We talk about this quite a bit on the draft show. Brian Broaddus, Jeff Kavanaugh, David Hellman, they all do a great job. And I'm still kind of the newer person, but even I understand that after the 15th pick, you look at guys and you say, okay, they have this high potential. They have this high ceiling. You see the tape and you really like what they bring on tape, but they just may not have those traits that some of the top guys have that have great tape and great traits. These guys they're not damaged goods, but they're really, really good players that have a little bit of a setback. And Linderbaum happens to be one of those guys, except his tape was so good that he's likely to go even before the Cowboys get to 24, period. And if he drops, it will be because of his measurements.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems to be the Cowboys certainly, and they did last year, make an emphasis on measurements.
Yeah.
Particularly arm. Arm.
On defense,
I'm gonna take the last 2 minutes of that clip there and put it on my iPod and make an MP3 of it and play it over and over again. That was beautiful. Myself and Rich, we're the two offensive line guys. I'm going to tell you why Kyle is absolutely right, because from a wide receiver standpoint, you don't draft a wide receiver with a first round pick for him to be wide receiver number 2. So what my point is, let CeeDee Lamb try and be wide receiver number 1, because with Amari Cooper there, you're going to obviously target Amari Cooper more. So hopefully the targets for Amari Cooper go to CeeDee Lamb. I always make the point during the season that there is only one ball to go around. So you've got Dalton Schultz, who's now on the salary and on the franchise tag. You've got CeeDee Lamb. You've got Michael Gallup, who we always wanted to be a wide receiver number 1. My point being, let these guys go and try and be wide receiver number 1. Supplement an already thin offensive line. When history has shown, when we take offensive linemen in the first round, we hit, and when we take offensive linemen day 2, day 3, it's questionable at best. I mean, you've got Connor Williams, who's no longer on the team. Biadish, who I agree with Kelly, is a work in progress. I'm not ready to give up on Biadish just yet, but I still think he's a work in progress. So by taking Linderbaum or Green, they have fewer red flags than a day 2 or a day 3 talent, especially when you have a very, very thin offensive line. Basically, what I'm saying is try and let Lamb be wide receiver number 1 as opposed to taking competition.
He's got it. He's got it. Here's the other thing, too, is you even said drafting at 24 to be a wide receiver 2. I mean, most likely he'll be a wide receiver 3. So you'll have spent a 17th pick 2 years ago on your wide receiver 1. You'll have 5 years, $62 million locked up in your wide receiver 2. And then you've got wide receiver 3 that you spent a 24th overall pick just 2 years after your wide receiver 1. You're right. That's a lot of investment after franchise tagging your tight end too, might I?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of investment in pass catchers. So if it doesn't work out, then you're in deep, deep trouble regardless. So I don't think a wide receiver in the second or the third round is out of the possibility. I think there's plenty of value there.
I'm going to do it.
It can't
Sky Moore. Sky Moore.
You watch the draft show, my friend.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
Show. That's fine. Hey, Sky Moore's a great player. I don't know if he's a first round talent like Jeff likes to think he is, and he's clamoring now for him to go.
He's with us next week, actually.
Yeah, I love Jeff, and I love his love for Sky Moore. But yeah, he's a good player. Just don't tell me that you want to take him at 24. I'm not on that.
No.
A hell of a 10-yard split and big hands.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
And
do you know something, actually, while we're talking to Sky Moore? When I was watching it, a lot of people keep saying, yeah, but he's a slot receiver. I think he's more than that. Definitely
no, he's way more than that. I agree with you. No, he's not a slot. He's that old mindset of thinking about a slot receiver because he's a little bit smaller and because he's got some quickness to him. The slot receiver now is a much more evolved position than it was in the past. Sky Moore's going to play outside. He has the ability to play outside. Guess what? He did it a lot at Western Michigan. He's also going to play in the slot, but that's an also, not a significant or only added into that beforehand.
Exactamundo. I tell you what he reminds me of coming out of college was Sterling Shepard. That type of player.
I can see that.
Yeah. But that is, I know we said an hour and we've gone way over that, so I do apologize. You know what it's like when you get into the flow. So we're going to let you crack on with the rest of your day over in sunny Dallas and let you do your thing. But I will say we are doing, we're not doing a 24-hour draft show this year. We're not doing that.
Oh, you're not going to do that 24 hours again?
No.
Why? Why did you not want to do that? I'm sure you're going to miss it.
It was a lot of fun, but if you want to see what it's like when like a handful of guys go crazy at 23 hours of talking, it is worth a watch. Dude, the 23rd hour, because all it is just bloodshot eyes and a lot of laughing and cracking up.
Well, that's what draft weekend is for us. I think last year I charted 5 hours of sleep over the 3 days of draft weekend because we've got, not only do we have the draft show and the live coverage that we do, but we have to write articles. Then we have to turn around and we have TV specials that we have to film. And
interviews.
Then of course, interviews and different things with the prospects that come in. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. And you guys went 24 hours, and I remember sitting there and being like, these guys are nuts. And I'm the one that's spending 23 hours a day that's doing the coverage, and you guys just wanted to do that one day. And I was like, man, these guys are crazy. I love it. Like I would never think about doing any of that. It's awesome. Credit to you guys. But I'm glad you decided to make that decision.
Yeah. I mean, we was all for charity, so it was a lot of fun doing that because awesome. It was for the cause. But we are doing draft shows this year. We're doing all 3 days during the draft. And if you've got a minute, we'll shoot you a message and see if you can come on and talk about the picks and the selections and anything that crops up that was surprising to you or not surprising, as the case may be.
For sure. Hit me up. Let me know. I'd love to hop on.
Yes. There we go. There it is. And it was getting pretty crazy out there. But we'll let you go, mate, and we'll finish wrapping the show up. And I'm sure you don't want to sit here listening to us talking sponsors. So
hey, I always like listening to the sponsors. They pay the money, or they pay the bills. That's what's happening.
They pay the bills. So we'll speak to you off air and get things organized and talk to you again, mate. Thank you very much for joining us and everything you do as well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys. Y'all have fun. And thank you for everything that you guys do.
No.
Thanks, Kel.
Thank you, Kel.
Cheers, mate. And there we have it. The great Kyle Yeomans. That was a lot of fun, as it always is. Next week, though, we've got another guest coming in. So it's coming in thick and fast. The week after that, we got another guest. And then after we have another guest. So it's just guest after guest. Trying to get you as much information as we can, as we always do. Who wants to do the read?
Go for it. I'll go.
Go on then.
Obviously, start looking to book up your game day packages for this coming season. If you're going to a game, obviously book through Cowboys Experience. They're great for meet and greets, tailgating, game day packages. They'll work with you for as and when you arrive in Dallas and as and when you leave as well. So they'll try and cram as much information and events in for you as well. And if you're going to Dallas, and you're booking through them, use the code UK Cowboys and you get
Free
stuff.
That's right. And then let Graham talk on this one.
Make sure to check out all these awesome content creators. We love every single one of them. We've even had someone on the show. Hope J Tuck enjoyed his holiday. Not the least bit jealous watching him on the beach all week. That was absolutely awesome. So these guys all have great draft content coming up. It's a really exciting time in the off season.
And we'll get some of them on as well during our draft shows.
Absolutely.
So that'll be a lot of
if
fun.
you like beach photos, Graham, you'll see me doing that in a couple of weeks' time as well. So.
And then just a final shout out to obviously the MVPs of the show, and that is all you guys. Thank you very much for your quotes, your comments, questions. All amazing. The shares. We love you guys. Thank you very much. And we will leave you with this. Before we go, though, if you want to all say goodbye and finish the show off, and we'll hit the draft day advert.
Yeah, so have a good week, guys. Catch you next week and enjoy yourselves.
Let's go, Tyler.
Hit it, Jay.
Peace out. Good week. Stay safe.
Have a nice weekend, folks.
You can try to break me. I cut my teeth on people like you. It's gonna take a lot more to take me down. I'm a step ahead, watch me wear my crown. Don't need a knight to guard the cave. Can count the dragons that I've slayed. You can give it all you got, 'cause love is running through my veins. Oh, this lion can't be tamed. There's fire in my blood.